Welcome to the 2020 New Testament Challenge. Today we're in Galatians chapter 3. Here in Galatians, Paul is talking about faith and the law. Now, what good is the law? Paul is saying that you cannot become righteous by observing the law, so why was the law given? Here, the law is an amplifier. In chapter 3, Paul makes it very clear that we are all slaves to sin, that we have all sinned, and we need to have our sin dealt with. But the law is an amplifier. Think in your mind of an electric guitar. Now, if you don't plug that electric guitar into an amplifier, into an amp, you can play the guitar and you can hear what's being played up close. But when it's plugged into an amplifier, then the sound of what's being played goes everywhere. But Paul is saying that the law is just like an amplifier. It magnifies the sound. It magnifies our sin. Our sin is now amplified, where we can understand the reality of it. In other words, it shows us how bad we really are. That apart from God, we are lost. That because of sin, we deserve death. The truth of our sin is exposed all the more because of the law. The unavoidable truth, the reality of sin, is brought forth so that no one can miss it because of the law. That's the reason the law was given. But also, Paul says this in verse 24, that the law was put in charge to lead us to Christ, that we might be justified by faith. We cannot be justified by the law. We cannot become righteous by the law. So God made another way. He gave us Jesus, and we need to put our faith and hope in Him and what He did for us. We need to believe in Jesus. This is what Paul said in verse 2. He says, I would like to know one thing from you. Did you receive the Spirit by observing the law or by believing what you heard? And then in verse 5, Paul said this, does God give you His Spirit and work miracles among you because you observe the law or because you believe what you heard? And then he says, consider Abraham. He believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. Understand then that those who believe are children of Abraham. So many people thought that they were children of Abraham because they had the law, because they had a pedigree. But Paul is saying, no, it's all about believing, by acting upon what God has done and what He has said. We need to believe. We need to put it into practice. Observing the law cannot make us righteous because it's impossible to become perfect when we are imperfect. Imperfect people cannot follow a perfect law. Therefore, faith in Jesus and in His perfect sacrifice makes us righteous. And when we apply this passage, this is what Paul said. You are all now sons of God through faith in Jesus Christ. This is verse 26. For all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourselves with Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. It's not by law, but it's by faith. It's not by observing the law, but it's by believing in Jesus and what He said. That makes all the difference. Thank you for joining the 2020 New Testament Challenge.